Welcome everyone to this wrap-up session of the festival, where we're going to discuss a little bit of what has been happening during this edition and what is coming next also. So a huge welcome, a huge thank you to all the people in the room who are all partners. I'm going to give you a few insights about what has been happening this year. So this is the fourth edition of the festival. It started in 2020 with a conference at the UNESCO headquarters in Paris with 250 participants, a one-day conference. Since it has grown quite a lot, and this year, thanks to you all, we had 500 partner organizations organizing at least 630 events all over the world. From what we can tell, there could be more, and we'll share this later if we have more details. But very many events were in person or hybrid, and some were online, like this one. It's really impressive. We had participants. To date, we can estimate at least 50,000 participants in the online events from 185 countries. Just before the session, we were checking the map of where do people connect from, and they really come from all over the world. This is quite impressive. We did a small teaser that you may have seen that was presented at the beginning of this session. And last year we did one, and we were very proud because we had 50,000 people watching the teaser and thinking, oh, that's the first time we do it, it works. This year we have over 1 million people who have been watching the teaser, and then many of them joining on the platform. So just to give you an idea, these are more like data, and it doesn't give what is really essential is the spirit of a festival this year. I mean, the huge frustration is that we can only attend a few of the session, and there are many running in parallel. But I had the pleasure of being in sessions with hundreds of kids. One was called Interconnected Schools, and I had kids from Bangladesh and Cambodia talking with French and Swiss and kids from Luxembourg about climate change. I just came out from a session with Keshav Gupta, who should be joining us very soon, with young people across different countries, in India and Afghanistan also, and others talking about Planetizen, which is one of the themes of this year, from citizenship to Planetizen, with the overall theme being learning to take care of oneself, others, and the planet. So really, I think something which is essential is the co-construction spirit, which is growing, the fact that it is together that we are creating this distributed event. So I don't want to talk much more just now. I will invite each of you to jump in, tell us about what they have been doing during the festival and what they're going to do next. And everyone will have something like 3 minutes to talk in a row, and then we can have some discussions. Just one last thing also that I would like to underline this year, two things. One is that the youth participation has never been so big. I can say thank you to Cathy, who has been organizing with Nolita, who's here. Such a mobilization across Africa. This is an African youth. This is fantastic. But many other organizations. I see Johnny here. I see that. So it's lots of things. Eleni. So we will be talking about this in more details. The other thing is that the local events at scale have been growing. We had 80 events in Paris, 130 in Lyon. But thanks to Charlotte and to Iveta, we all had something like, I think, 15 or 16, or maybe you'll tell me more, events taking place in Phoenix, Arizona. And we have events taking place in India and in other places. So that's not only global as a movement, but it's also growing locally. And last words, and I stop, the place of arts, because I saw Anis. The artists' contribution is growing. We had filmmakers, writers like Kim Stanley Robinson, teachers in education. So this is growing too. So that has been very exciting. So exciting that I'm about to fall apart and I'm worn out just now, but very happy to be with you. I stop there. Francois, please, if you want to make some introduction around the Planetizen dimension.
Thank you so much, Olivier. May I remind you that the motto of the festival is caring for oneself, others, and the planet. So please, Olivier, do care for yourself as well. And all of you, I know that you've all contributed a lot, your energy investing into this the success of this festival. I know the whole team, and I want to thank them, has done amazing work, not only during the festival, but for months ahead of time. So thanks to all of you. I think it's a real privilege to see dreams come true. The festival was a dream one day, and now it's a reality that is growing and growing. Even before the festival, we had another dream that was this idea of Planetizen. and many of you have contributed already to it. And this idea that the citizens are the men in arms that are defending the city walls, and that created many inequalities, and that we need to overcome that historical barriers, and that we have to have a much more inclusive concept that is both inclusive for all human beings, but also for all living beings, and that truly encompasses everyone on the planet, led to this idea of planetizenship, where the citizen limitations should be overcome by a planetizen. And so that's really, it was just an idea before the festival, and thanks to many of you, it became a conversation. And I think that, you're all, given your contribution to the festival, I think you should all be recognized as among the first learning planetizens. So I think, we should send you some sort of a certificates at some point, and you'll do what you want with it. But I think, that's for me a proof of your contribution to, and a way to acknowledge how much you've helped us in building this community. And it's just the beginning. It's growing and growing, but I think it has to grow even more if we want to have the impact at the scale that is needed, given the amount of challenges that we are facing. And I think that the fact that youth is ever more involved in the festival is a very, very good sign. And I see many young faces already here, and many people that are young in spirit inside, which is probably even more important. And I think that, together we stand a chance in building these international links. And among the many new things that were discussed, for instance, the progress of AI that I think we're all aware of was also discussed. And, what does it change? What can we do with AI that we could not do without AI to foster the agenda of sustainability is typically among the questions that were discussed. And I think there are very promising possibilities, even though, like this disruption, like many of the disruptions, have both positive and negative impact, and we should try to maximize the positive ones, of course, and minimize the negatives. And I think that, among the very encouraging sign, I see Johnny, and I know his influence on trying to change decision makers. So the good news for Johnny, and I think for all of us, is that today, especially in France, we had the French Minister of Higher Education, and she is super committed to the transition. And she contributed to the not only very nice words that will be available in replay, so you can all listen to it, but she was also attending to what was contributed, at least at the national level, because we had the French closing ceremony of the festival. And she was very impressed by the diversity of things happening on the national and international scale. And I think, this is just the beginning. I think, next year's, all of you can invite your respective ministers and decision makers, and we can try to make the movement grow ever more. I think that, we are just at the beginning of this adventure. But we are also at the beginning of this closing ceremony, and we are going to listen to all your contributions and everything that's moved you or touched you or impacted you. And I'm, again, very glad that, this was co-constructed by all of you, like the ceremony will be. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, François. And at the very second you were finishing, I was going to introduce Keshav, but so Keshav was with us. He organized a huge model UN around planetizenship with many young people. It's quite late in India, so I just learned that he won't be able to be with us just now, but a huge thank you to Keshav. So we will start talking about the youth participation. So I would start now with Eleni to tell us a little bit about what she's been doing during the festival and what she takes away from this and what next, really.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank all the technical team that has been amazing in organizing this. Having been on the other side of the organizing part, even in the minuscule part of it, I can see how stressful and amazing their responses have been. So through my participation and representation of Fridays for Future Climate Education in two parts, in the introductory part of the idea of accelerating the transition, and the second part of our webinar concerning what we wish we knew before starting our activism. I feel like we've concluded in some points that are interesting to bring together. The first part is that we discussed an accelerated transition, one that is holistic and that is not only a transition that is sustainable, but only in terms of its goals, but also of its practices. So the idea of learning for sustainability, which is also the topic of what I'm discussing now, but also learning from sustainable practices lived on the daily. The second one would be about practices concerning activists themselves. And I love the phrasing of the festival because we talked about how damaging sometimes activism can be for the youth in terms of their schedules, in terms of their different priorities, in terms of how they deal with their own community, in terms of their stress, but at the same time, also how that activism, and to myself as well, promotes a different type of understanding of their lives, gives them meaning, gives us a bit of calm that we are actually working for the things that worry us the most. And then the final, perhaps most important thing that came out from both sessions was the idea that independently of youth participation, we are in dire need of intergenerational dialogues such as these. As much as we're motivating action as the youth, we also need people in places of power, people with experience within, let's say, education sectors, to be able to come in and provide us with their own spirit, their own experience, their own work in most of those cases, and generally share this vision with us. So in that context, we spoke about including shared visions for a 20% of curricula being shared between teachers and students within educational factors. That was an interesting idea that we would like to look into for the future. I think those are 3 points that were really interesting, at least to me, having represented this group, but also we're looking forward to more actions. I believe Johnny Dabrowski is going to present one of those later today for you all. So that would be the introduction of our experience.
So thank you very much, Eleni. Indeed, we've kind of structured the session today about first a bit of a wrap-up, sharing about what we've been doing together. We will then talk about some of the partners initiative and LearningPlanet initiative that are being launched and ongoing, because the festival really serves not only about a moment to celebrate and meet and share what has been done previously and discuss new narratives around learning for the 21st century. It is also a very good time, and we see this grow every year, to launch new initiatives that often bring quite a few of us together. So Johnny will be listening to you soon for some next steps. Eleni, you were to talk also with Gaël Mingui, who unfortunately at the last minute cannot be with us here, but he was going to talk a lot about all the subject that we've been seeing throughout the festival about learning for sustainability at every ages. But I think knowing who is here in the room, we will be covering this quite a lot. So I will just move to the next people, and maybe we can further discuss this at the end. Talking about youth, still, well, I would like to have Nolita and Katie with the Ubuntu Learning Circle. They can share about the youth and youth African participation during this festival and what has been happening. So I don't know, Nolita, maybe you want to take the floor first, and Katie, if you want to add a few words.
Thank you. We are actually going to reverse that, because we wanted to go quickly into the Ubuntu Learning Circle, and then Nolita will talk more specifically to our session that we had this week. So just to make sure that everyone has context, as you know, as we mentioned a few times already, our mission is to join forces to take better care of ourselves, each other, and the planet. And this year, we're really excited to be focusing a lot more on Africa and the concept of Ubuntu, which means I am because you are, and emphasizes the interconnectedness and interdependence of all living things. And our Ubuntu Learning Circle is a collection of actors from all walks of life who are committed to 3 common goals. And those are, number one, to identify and connect a network of actors addressing learning for sustainability in Africa in remarkable ways. Number two, to identify inspiring place-based learning for sustainability initiatives and projects all across the continent. And thirdly, to identify and conceive flagship projects to support together as a circle of really connected actors. And I will share the link to our project page in the chat if anyone's interested. And as I mentioned, we're honing in on our African focus, and through this circle, focused on sustainability, and through our session yesterday, we focused on African youth reinventing the future. And I'll leave my wonderful co-lead, Nolita, to summarize and share some highlights from this year's session. Over to you.
Thank you, Superstar. So, as Catherine said, based on a year of winter learning sessions that we did, we came to this year's festival with the theme African Youth Reinventing the Future. So, incredibly thought-provoking. Speakers from across the African diaspora gathered in an intergenerational dialogue asking the following questions. As the world's most youthful continent, is there an opportunity to redefine, redesign, and transform our idea of the future that Africa and humanity can have? The second one was, when faced with as many challenges as we do, is there an opportunity to build a path to a better future? So we started the session with a challenge from all of the speakers and the participants, with Dr. Ndidi Noliedozian, executive member of the Club of Rome, saying, we need to start by having conversations as if we were 6 years old, showcasing our humanity and our interconnectedness. Central to all of the intervention was Ubuntu, which makes sense for the Ubuntu Learning Circle, centered on an awareness of self, and the ambition was to liberate the future of young Africans that has already been captured within their imaginations. So it's a great ambition. With one of the speakers, Bolaji Akimboro, saying that the youth of today are the freedom fighters of this century, fighting to create something better, fighting to create something new. It's about thinking beyond the expected. It is about thinking of the story that we tell about Africa through our words and our actions. This was shared by youth speakers. Dr. Mampila Rompele eloquently summarized the session and this discussion by saying that it is maybe perhaps not about African youth reinventing the future, but is about African youth liberating the future. It is incredibly clear the huge responsibility that the LearningPlanet Institute and the Club of Rome, as the hosts of the circle, have when it comes to following through. What story will our actions tell about our view of Africa? So to learn more about the Learning Circle, Catherine has already shared the link on the chat, and this is an invitation for us to tell a different story. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Nolita. It's such a pleasure to work with you, with Rad, with Carlos, with the Club of Rome, and so many networks on this incredible and very important subject. And thank you to Katie that is doing this in partnership with you. Our next speaker should have been Pavel Luksha, with whom we were yesterday, and throughout the week he's been organizing quite a few events. I guess I just forgot to let him know that he was expected to join us, while he's here every year. So just a few words. He's been working a lot with some groups around building peaceful futures. And there have been some very interesting sharing of conversation about new ways to approach peace building and making sure that we can try to become a species where war is banned. Given the power of the new weapons that can be used, we can really destroy ourselves completely, or we have to rethink the way we want to interact. This was very aligned with the idea of planetizenship. There has been more sessions about building a university for a planet, which will echo many things that have been done with ASU, notably. And also yesterday in a session where Francois was participating, we were discussing the importance of addressing a model of governance for the Learning Planet initiative and all the partners that could help us grow it and make it really the movement for mobilizing everyone around education for transitions. So hello to Pavel, thank you again for all your help. And I am now moving to Michael Stevenson, In fact, in a way, it is moving to Michael and Leonora and Valerie, who are with us, but they will be talking about other subjects. Michael, we've been doing together with other partners research around learning ecosystems in adverse circumstances. Could you tell us a bit more about the work we've been doing and some of the next steps we're exploring?
Thanks, Olivier. Will, yes, we had a terrific session looking at the emerging outcomes of research we've been doing together, Global Education Leaders Program, and you and LearningPlanet, research on learning ecosystems in the Global South. And across a number of geographies, Latin America, Indonesia, India, and Africa. I mean, part of that has just been defining what we mean by a learning ecosystem, because there's been no shortage of people talking ecosystems for many years. And we've begun to talk really about two dimensions, why and how. The why being educators who are seeking to help learners thrive in conditions of great adversity. That's very different from helping learners get benchmark scores in math, science, and reading, though it might include that. And then the how, ecosystems that deploy innovative teaching and learning and assessment, are built around diverse and multiple provision, and always inspiring shared values and leadership. So that's the kind of definition we've used. And we've worked very closely over the last year or so with 11 amazing learning ecosystems around the world. Each of them characterized in the way that I said, but with different orientations and models. So I think of Efecto Ancash in Peru, working closely with government to build professional capacity in the schools. Something right outside the formal education system, Kepler, working in the refugee camps in Rwanda, offering advanced learning, or Friendship Bangladesh, kind of providing learning from scratch, really, to people in the most challenging conditions in that part of the world. And over this time, this year, we've not just kind of tried to get our heads around it, but we've tried to build two communities, a community of ecosystem leaders working together on this problem, and policymakers, many of whom start off pretty skeptical, but increasingly see the power of what's going on and how they need to factor it in to their long-term thinking. And in that session the other day, we heard Pavel and also Greg Baer, leaders of ecosystemic thinking in the North, beginning to see that the energy is all now in the South. So where do we go next in phase 2? I think we want to deepen and widen this community of practice, providing tools for ecosystem leaders across the Global South. It'll be vital to build a real evidence base with comparative data that we can put at the disposal of policymakers, and continuing to have that conversation with policymakers, I think, is vital, so that they welcome learning ecosystems and abandon the fear and the anxiety that they sometimes have. So that's what we've been up to and what we were able to amplify really through all of you this week at the festival.
Thank you very much, Michael. I was only slightly able to join once in a while. I'm absolutely so excited by the work that is being done on this and the case studies that and the partners in this research. Thank you very much. Now we are going to talk a little bit it's Celiane now. I mean, Celiane has been supporting Kristen through our live LPTV. Our live LPTV was 10 hours of program on the 24th of January with talks and interviews and panel discussions about many of the key subjects with big speakers like Helen Clark and Kim Stanley Robinson and many others, and some who are here. Stephen Friend was kind enough to do the closing of that day, but also there was a strong focus on subjects around tech and AI, and maybe you can tell us a few words about what happened during these sessions.
Yes, thank you. Hello, everyone. So on the 24th, to celebrate education, we had many sessions, but 3 of them were moderated by Kristen Davis, who was also the general MC. And so they all give us valuable insights into what it takes to create powerful, equitable, and safe digital learning spaces. So first, we had a session between Mart Haro, who's co-founder of the Nordic EdTech Forum, N8, and Remapply.com, Iris Abraham, who's communication and policy advisor at the Cabinet of the Vice President for Democracy and Demography at the European Commission, and Sebastian Berger, executive director of the Global Student Forum. And what they explored together was the role policy plays in creating equitable and safe learning spaces and access to online learning. For example, Iris Abraham presented the EU Declaration of Digital Principles and Rights, which reflected all the speakers' concern to co-create policies with the people who will be impacted by them, including children. So that was one of these 3 sessions. And another one was with Daniel Hernan, global lead at EI Metaverse Labs, Esther O'Callaghan, OBE, and the founder of Hondo XYZ, and Daniele Stasilius, who's co-founder, CEO of Learniverse, and founder of the Metaverse Education Alliance. And what they discussed was how the years to come would leapfrog learning into the metaverse. That is to say that Danielus explained that by 2030, around $200 billion would be invested and revolving around education in the metaverse, as opposed to a couple of billions now. So it means that about 7 million educators will be working in close link to the metaverse very soon. So that was one of the kind of impact that we saw happening in the second session. And the third one, we had Silja Hodent, who's game user experience strategist, cognitive psychology expert as well, Bo Lotto, who's CEO and founder of the Lab of Misfits, and Charlie Moreno Romero, head of studies at Suvermay TKG. And they discussed how challenging it is to actually create a game, an online game, this type of universe that would be both engaging and a great learning experience. But beyond the challenges, which you'll discover if you watch the session, I'll send you the link, Bo Lotto reminded us that games have this huge power and an advantage, that is that it's one of the only spaces where we feel allowed to actually not know something, and we don't want to turn around and just go back to the known space. So before I leave you to explore more, I'll just give you a quote by Charlie, which is, I quote, "In self-determination theory, the learner takes control over the learning. So we aim at developing 3 dimensions: autonomy, competence, and relationships. We need more mentors to help young people and to explore with this kind of topics." So unquote. So if you would like to know more about all these sessions, I'll send you the link to the replay of the sessions, and you can also email me if you want, the specific times and titles. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Hard task to summarize 3 45 minutes panel discussions, but do put the link indeed. The way that tech and learning has been approached was with very different visions about what is happening. And we had also David Germano from Virginia University talking a lot about the mental health crisis that students around the world are facing, and the very strong link between the way that algorithms are being used for captation of awareness. So it was really exploring what are the possibilities, and also looking at the pitfalls. And talking about this, Shahab, we had a very exciting conversation that I'll let you share around AI and learning.
Many thanks, Olivier. Indeed, we had an incredible panel. If you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor and watch the replay. I'm going to put the link later in the chat room. The panel was entitled, "How Will We Learn with Next Generation AI?" And it was really triggered by the launch of ChatGPT only 8 weeks ago. Looks like a lifetime ago, but it's been only 8 weeks. And how such technology can impact education and learning was what we were discussing. We first discussed whether this is a transformative technology, And the answer was yes from the panelists, because we interact with the system in plain English or French or any other language. And so we delegate the hard work to the machine was essentially the thought behind it. More importantly, what's the consequence of education learning? The panelists generally agreed that banning is not an option, despite some people, countries, or organizations doing it. So embracing these kind of tools is the only option, and we need to think for the education system to rethink rather the evaluation process and how to make sure, how do we test understanding, how to make sure the students have understood what's going on. There was also a remark at that moment in the panel about the attention versus the action. And that was a strong moment, I thought, because there was this remark about leaving the attention economy and transitioning into an action economy. And action is why you learn things. Why do you learn things in the first place? Because you want to do things. And that I think is a powerful, very powerful message. We also discussed the pitfalls of ChatGPT and such technology. For instance, we said that it's not always reliable. It sometimes hallucinates and makes up things. But we also know that it's a fast-moving target. And it's a technology that is bound to get better very fast. So, and if you watch the news or follow the trends in AI, you will see that many people are already attempting at making the sources available and reliable for generative AI. There was we discussed ethics, and that was a very interesting part of the session. It's a black box at this point, and it has some biases, classic biases of the AI system. Also scraping data from websites without consent that has led to some litigations, and using up human labor for training data and so forth. There was also this remark when we got to the outlook of the session about well, I think it comes down to how do we use the technology to our advantage, and how the human and the machine can collaborate, and how to complement their intelligence. Looks like at this moment, ChatGPT is best when you are an expert in the field. If you are asking it for factual things, you can first start with a draft and then pursue. So that is difficult for learners. But for instance, summarization is a very powerful thing that ChatGPT is able to do. People thought that the flipped classroom is finally going to happen with such AI tools. And that was also interesting if it does indeed happen. More interestingly, there was the session closed with remarks on the chat room, by the way, was on fire completely during this session. And including in the chat room, there was discussion of access to AI as a fundamental right. And open source systems there are quite important, and the need for defending our digital commons, just like we do for our natural and cultural commons. So those were, for me, Olivier, the highlights of this session.
Thank you, Shahab. Shahab, you have a new director of R&D at the LearningPlanet Institute, and I've heard that there will be quite a few publications of papers around these subjects, together with François, with Elie, and other contributors, and Johan and Jan. Sorry. So looking forward to some contribution and some papers that we can start sharing about this. But and I do invite you to check this session indeed. So thank you. We are now moving from AI to art and artivism. Art or Ragda, please start. And I see that if Anis is around, you can also say a word, please, Anis, just including you. You were talking about this last year, but starting with art and Ragda as you've planned.
Yeah, thanks, Olivier. And it's amazing to see how much the festival grew. We were invited 2 years ago. It was few sessions online because of COVID, and we joined even at the one that was organized by my dear friend Anis and Khan, and we had Emmanuel Jan. It was very inspiration. So congratulations with all the amazing sessions. I had attended some of them, and we in Masterpiece we organized the two. So I know that Art will talk more about Act as a Donut, but it was about artivism, this methodology of using art for a social change, for telling your story, opening up for young people, especially from vulnerable groups. But to be honest, for everyone, that was what the session was about. People came in and shared how relevant it is in their own country, all the way from South Africa to Ghana, to Colombia, to Albania, where we showcased some of our project. We've been running a project called Artivist Estafette. It's a bit of a new concept in some parts of the world, but I would say also globally, how art can, not only through artists, but just everyone has a talent. That's what also Masterpiece believes in. So anyone can be an artist or artivist. That's even better. So we shared some stories from Albania. That's a project of 30 months with a lot of challenges, but also opportunities. And what stuck with me yesterday, some of our team from Albania actually shared that we had a person who really was very shy at the beginning of the training on artivism, felt first of all, I'm not an artist. Second of all, I don't think I have a message to tell. And then through some trainings, but he said, I want to try it out. There is nothing happens in my small city, because the project also happens outside of the capital. He joined in at the beginning a bit from the background, said I never did a podcast before, never listened to one. And throughout the training, he became a bit more engaged. And recently he sent an email to our team saying that his podcast was picked up by the national radio in Albania, and he has many more episodes to do, telling a story about a queer person and their life in that small city. So really, these such stories zooming into individual journeys really makes us, makes the project worth the while. But at the same time, we can imagine that this is such a strong or effective methodology that can be used around the world, especially I'm thinking also from the AI perspective. There is a lot of new technologies that enables more art creations and into that, but how that could affect the art scene and especially artivism. So that's that we didn't touch on that, but I'm very curious. Maybe that's a topic for the next Learning Planet Festival.
Thank you very much, Ragda. We did try a few things. Damien here is head of digital and audiovisual, and he's been doing a trailer. Maybe you can share a link. I don't know. We're already exploring this. We had Janet Raffner, who is a former student and who is doing research and presented a solution called CreaVisions with workshops that took place here. So we are already starting to explore AI and creativity to some extent. Poems have been written with youth and AI also, and musics and other things. We may even end up with some of this content. Anis, a quick word, because we've been talking so much about doing one of these Learning Planet Circle together with Community Arts Network around arts for education. We have to get this moving. How did it go for you?
No, it went very well. I really encourage everyone to have a look at Masterpiece work, because it's really good. They are a very close partner of the Community Arts Network, and we really like them, and we like to co-create with them. Maybe the segue between the AI and artivism, because it's a new word, and I really encourage every one of you to have a look on ChatGPT what artivism is, and maybe you will understand what it is. For us, it was a very interesting session one again. another closing of the festival, and every time we are more and more energized by the growth and the wealth of the thinking and doing around education and in the world. So at the Community Arts Network, we are growing side by side with you, with our friends at the LearningPlanet Institute, and we're very grateful to have again this opportunity to have International Day of Education as a big landmark in our year with such a brilliant co-created festival. And I think that this sense of collaboration is very, very important for us. Art for Education is one of Cannes' core pillars. And this year we have curated this session around a roadmap to bringing in and bringing back arts into public education systems. Last year, we have commissioned a desk review after the LearningPlanet Festival. This was one of the launch of the circles that we are speaking with Olivier, with Ed and the whole team at the LearningPlanet Institute. And this desk review to give us a pulse of the situation. And this festival this year was an opportunity to feature the first results, to speak about possible answers, and to open a path towards a better integration of arts for education globally. So where are we today? One, we're more and more motivated to continue this piece of work because judging by all the contribution today and this week in all the sessions, we can really affirm that there is a strong willingness to make a change. We're not alone in this work, and actually, even though the local context changes from country to country, the overall goal is the same everywhere in the world. Art education has waned in public education globally. Art education is vital to the achievement of the SDG number 4. Arts open possibilities for creative thinking and expression that is essential to innovation and social change. So reinvigorating art education globally will require intrinsic and motivational rationales. The desk review was our starting point, and really it started after last year's festival. We will continue the work on this report that provides a roadmap and brings practical insights and inspiration to decision makers, funders, and organizations. The next phase will include interviews with key people, experts, and governmental figures from all over the globe to come up with a more holistic report. And of course, you can understand that next year, LearningPlanet Festival will be the consecration of this report. So we're really building a story with the festival. In this work, we're looking at some key questions regarding arts in public education system. What are some of the underlying causes, and how are these causes related? What are promising practices and potential levels of change? What is the current status of global advocacy? Where are there opportunities and momentum? And who are advocates, frontrunners, and potential co-funders? We need money for that. And finally, what are examples of national models so that we have a systemic change, and what factors contribute to their success? Today, I would like to invite you, alongside the friends of Masterpiece, of LearningPlanet Festival, but with so many other Cannes members that have initiated in sessions at the LearningPlanet Festival this year, to join this journey with your expertise, connections, network, and co-create this roadmap together in the same spirit of the LearningPlanet Festival. You'll meet, I can assure you, incredible like-minded change makers from all horizons. The work is very exciting. We are very excited, and we welcome you with really open arms. So that next year, the LearningPlanet Festival 2024 will have an even stronger coalition, and change will be seen in arts for education. Thank you again, Olivier. Thank you again for the platform. And yes, this circle might not be so organized and structured, but we are working on it with a lot of people around us. Thank you.
Thank you, and it's always a great pleasure to collaborate with you. You said a word about the platform, so I want to congratulate again Damien for the absolutely incredible work done to have an online platform to welcome so many events with so many functionalities, like the time zone that adapts from wherever you connect, and so many others. So we're improving every year, but really this has been so big as a work done this year, that thanks a lot, Damien, for this also. I'm now just maybe giving a few, so that you know, because the speakers are joining. I don't know if they all know in which kind of order they will be talking. So now we are moving into the partners initiative that are being launched. And I will be welcoming the Bridge Coalition with Dr. Stephen Hartman. Then I will have Iveta and Charlotte to talk a little bit about all what ISU has been doing and things that can be launched. Then maybe quickly, Nolita, a few words again about the new generational contract. Then Johnny, Then we should have had Sebastian Berger with the launch of an international consultation for the new UN Youth Office from Global Student Forum, but he's ill and won't be joining. So we will close this part with Valerie Annan, who has been doing some very interesting research and preparing paper and books and everything. So that's to give you the next stage. And then we'll share a bit about some of the Learning Planet ongoing initiatives. So each time we should take something like 3 minutes, please, because I think we can fit very well. And we will also be talking about major upcoming events to close, such as Earth Day, Catalyst Change Week, and a few others. So just now, jumping into the next part of this meeting and inviting Stephen Hartman to tell us a bit more about the Bridge Coalition. Please, Stephen, in 3 minutes. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks very much. And I want to thank all of the organizers of the Learning Planet Festival for just a really, really incredible experience. The Bridges Coalition is new to the Learning Planet Festival, and the Bridges Coalition, I guess you could say, is new. It was formed by 3 founding partners: UNESCO, the International Council for Philosophy and Human Sciences, and the Humanities for the Environment Global Observatory Network. And it was put together over a couple of years and brought together 40 inaugural partners at its inaugural General Assembly in 2021. And the last year has been devoted to operationalizing 5 hubs of the around the world of the Bridges Coalition, which help us with the implementation of our goals. And there will be more hubs coming online, it's expected, in the year or 2 to come. So we were brought really into the Learning Planet Festival, I'd say, through the Club of Rome, which sponsors one of our 5 hubs. And they brought us into the Ubuntu Learning Circle. And in that context, I got to know Ed and I got to know Catherine, and that led to a series of further discussions, which has resulted in our being involved in the festival every day, actually, of the festival this week. And I think we ended up having, including the Club of Rome sponsored introduction to Bridges session on the first day of the festival, we had really I think 7 altogether. And that involved all of our hubs, actually. So we were really, really happy with that. One of those hubs, by the way, is located at Arizona State University. And so we have good possibilities for both connecting up with UNESCO, with Club of Rome, with other partners that are already part of the Learning Planet sort of community, and trying to deepen that and also bridge different collaborations across many networks. I would say that we, by the way, are formalized. We have a statutory role within the Intergovernmental Management of Social Transformations program, which is an international science program and an intergovernmental council whose secretariat is managed by UNESCO's Social and Human Sciences sector. So we're just taking off our website, which I'll put the URL in the chat window after I talk here for a minute. Our website is launching in a week or 2. We're working on populating it. I was really hoping we'd have it populated by the time of the festival, but no fear, it's launching very soon. And it's going to be the source of a lot of information about what we're doing. We've started off with a running start this year when we started launching our hubs. And that's why we were so delighted to be able to participate in the festival. And we really look forward to partnering with you as we move forward and as the festival moves forward. And finally, what I would like to say is that there's already discussion of a report that we're interested in preparing together with the Club of Rome and together with UNESCO that might be a joint Club of Rome and UNESCO Bridges-led report, which is intended to map capabilities and communities of knowledge that have been under-resourced in the sort of science policy interface, let's say, within sustainability science. And so this is going to be, we're at the early stages of co-design of that. So please get a hold of me if you think that you would be interested in finding out more or even taking part in the co-design discussions, because this is something that I think is going to be a major project of ours over the next 1 or 2 years. So I think my 3 minutes are out. I'm going to stop there. Thanks very much. It's been great.
Stephen, thank you very much for choosing the Learning Planet Festival to launch the Bridge Coalition, for coming and joining for lunch in Paris recently, which was great. and for participating every day in the festival. Talking about people who have been participated at an incredible level throughout the festival, I would now like to invite Iveta and Charlotte to tell us a bit more about what they've been doing, all the arts and all the creation of new curricula that have been done during the festival. Iveta, please.
Thank you so much. And first of all, huge congratulations to everybody for such a successful week. It's been incredible. And it was especially unique and powerful for us at Arizona State University. In addition to enjoying the inspiring program of the Learning Planet Festival from all corners of the world, we have also organized an extension of the festival in the greater Phoenix area. And so we hosted close to 20 events and engaged probably more than 500 participants in our community and beyond, since most of the events were held either in a hybrid form or included some kind of online form of participation as well. And I will just mention a couple of my own favorite highlights, and I will only mention 3, although there are many more. So first of all, we launched during the Learning Planet Festival, the Regional Center of Expertise on Education for Sustainable Development, which has been officially acknowledged by the United Nations University and UNESCO. And for us, as one of the most unsustainable cities in the United States, this is a great step in bringing the different stakeholders together, from universities and governments to businesses and non-governmental organizations and community, to mobilize forces as we redefine the role of education in shaping more ecologically just and sustainable futures. So that was a really big deal. Another really great event was a coming together of colleagues at our university, both professors and students and staff, who started drafting a manifesto on decarbonizing research. So our hope is to get it done and share with our university administration on Earth Day. And more on this to come. If anybody else is interested in learning more or joining forces, let us know. And last but not least is the socially engaged art workshops on visions of education futures and Planetizens were a total hit. But they also turned out to be the events that perhaps translated the vision of the festival into very, very practical ways. So these workshops were not only the spaces where we discussed conceptually and theoretically what it means to take care of oneself, each other, and the planet, but we actually practiced it during our time together, taking the time to slow down and getting to know each other, sharing the space and time for meditation collectively, and creating futures together through art and text. It was absolutely amazing. And this work is not over. Please check the Instagram pages for the Turn It Around cards and also the Planetizen Museum, and use the hashtag Planetizens to share a portrait of a Planetizen you may know, or ideas of how you envision Planetizens can connect across difference and create spaces for collective decision-making and solidarity. So all of it is still in action and ongoing. And in fact, I feel that the festival was a launching pad for these conversations. So only 3 highlights, but Charlotte has more. Another important highlight for me was just getting to know Charlotte so well during this process.
Thank you very much, Iveta. Thank you, everyone, for at the Learning Planet Institute specifically for the support, and the amazing team here as well at Arizona State University. So putting up around 20 events together requires collective work, obviously, and this was a transition also in the way that we did things, right? A sustainable way of working together. So many things happened this week, and it was amazing in terms of connecting people from different areas of expertise, from different points of view, positions in the world, and ages as well. And for many of those connections that were made both online with people, all over the world, and within the ASU community that is so big that occasions like these are important to connect people that do not know what is being done elsewhere within the ASU community. The conversation is only starting. So I would like to linger a little bit on the theme of art, which will, connect many things. I've seen that it was the case in many places, hearing from all of you up to now. So this is really interesting to see the place of art, because we could think only of science as, you know, an engine for transition and sustainability, but art is actually very powerful in bringing out change. So we started the week with re-examining our lives as art and our behaviors are as artistic. And Professor Andrew Freiband highlighted the fact that it's not the artwork that defines the artist. The artist is a mindset, like has a mindset, and we are all artists in the way we interact with the world, potentially. And I thought that this idea was very interesting, also in terms of we can all be actors of the transition. We don't have to be specialists. So this was a very powerful idea, and it was an interesting way to launch the week. And this idea came also as central in the discussion we had between Turn It Around youth activists and local policymakers in education in the greater Phoenix area. And the conclusion to that particular conversation was that when we are not invited to the table, we should make the table, be the table, and start change from here. And I found that very interesting and powerful as well. And finally, maybe I would like to speak about the one-day workshop we had yesterday with 50 high school students from around 12 schools in the Phoenix greater area. And this was really interesting. And there again, art was central to the work we did with them. We first started by using and heavily relying on the work of Pascal Colbert and the Learning Planet Institute around the Ikigai. So starting by asking students to look at their own lives and try to find meaning in them, to try and decide, be active in the path that they were taking. And then they use their observation of how they live in the Phoenix greater area, the reality that they're in. So this is urban planning organized around the use of cars, extreme heat, amazing beauty of the desert, but also low water supplies, fragility, and all these things. And then from there to see how they could draw a desirable future for the Phoenix area, but also more generally for the world, by combining. Their conclusions were a wish to combine the use of technology, not a refusal of technology, but really the best use of it, and with contact of nature and care for other people and nature, and also starting also with themselves. So this was really interesting, and really art was a way to put all this together and have them produce something collective. So yeah, thank you so much for the occasion of having all these conversations at the festival.
So Charlotte, Iveta, 1000, thank you for an incredible level of engagement and creativity and enthusiasm. One word, because I think Professor Brian McCraft won't be with us. So still with ASU, we had a session named Critical Transitions in Higher Education for Planetary Health, together also with Alan Bolden from Dartington Hall. This is our Transitions in Higher Education Circle meeting, and it's growing. But this session, I think, I'm thinking of Valerie and Michael, you would have been quite excited, really. We took the University of Ashesi in Ghana, Arizona State University, and the University of Glasgow, looking at their role at the heart of learning ecosystems, with a very strong civic dimension, with the role of university very connected to social impact, planetary health. And looking at these three case studies was a starting point for an exciting conversation. Ed, maybe you could put the link to the replay of this session, but it went very deep. And we know that with UDI, the University Design Institute at Arizona State University, we're going to be pushing this forward in the coming months, and it was absolutely exciting. So thank you again. Now, maybe it's time, I'm jumping in. Johnny, tell us about what the launch of a Climate Education Coalition petition, please.
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you, to Learning Planet Institute for organizing the Learning Planet Festival this year and for being a leader in exploring the power of education worldwide. I would also like to thank earthday.org India for organizing fantastic panels at the Learning Planet Festival. I encourage all of you to watch them. I have just moderated panel for My Future, My Voice in Climate Education with fantastic climate advocates from all around the world. And I also encourage you to take a look and see what makes climate activist. But what I would like to announce to you all is that as earthday.org, together with more than 100 organizations, including present here, Learning Planet Institute and Turn It Around cards from Arizona State University, and with dozens of other organizations and individual activists from all around the world, we have created an open letter to the COP28 presidency, asking the presidency to prioritize climate education at this year's climate conference in the United Arab Emirates. We are inviting the COP28 presidency to collaborate with us, with Climate Education Coalition, who represents the youth, the civil society, the educational institutions that stand for climate education worldwide. I would like to present to you our key demands for the COP28 presidency, which are embedded in the open letter. The first of them is to establish climate education as one of the focal points of negotiations. Second is for the presidency to encourage member states to sign the Glasgow Declaration for Climate Education. Three is to urge heads of states attending the World Leaders Summit to commit to climate education, to embedding climate education and allocating funds for it in their national curricula. Four is to organize a high-level ministerial session to highlight the significance of climate education. And I'm looking forward to talking about this with LPI ASU. And five is to include a thematic day dedicated to climate education at COP28. We didn't have an education day at COP27 in Egypt. That's a shame. And I think we need to push for climate education day at COP28. The point of all of that is also the point of why we gather here. It's about how we can use education in the best way. Because the truth is we can get rid of the fossil fuels by 2050. And we can save world's biodiversity and climate. But we can only achieve these goals if we provide each human being with quality education about what climate change is and what each one of us can do about it and what role we can play in our regions and in our communities. I invite you all to sign the open letter to the COP28 presidency. You can find it on earthday.org social media, Twitter, Facebook, also on our website, created by more than 100 organizations, including LPI and ASU. And I encourage you to sign, to share, and to push the COP28 presidency in your capacity to prioritize climate education at COP28 in the United Arab Emirates this year, to be part of the solution. Thank you very much, and thank you once again for organizing this festival. I think it's really crucial for exploring the ways we can use education for making the world a much better place. Thank you.
Johnny, a great pleasure to see you again today, since our first encounter, as far as I'm concerned, at the UNESCO pre-summit in last June. Great pleasure. Thank you very much. May I ask you to say, and it's a bit of a challenge, but Nolita, only a 1 or 2 minute word about the new generational contract, because I'm beginning aware that, and so please, just a few words, and then I move to Valérie, who has some important stuff to share with us also, just before going to Leonora and the Teachers for the Planet initiative, which will echo Johnny's talk just now.
Yeah, don't worry. I didn't have too much planned anyway. So the Club of Rome has partnered with the St. Gallen's Symposium to develop an initiative on a new generational contract. The initiative aims to fundamentally shake perspectives on intergenerational fairness by identifying different processes and perspectives from a global perspective. So at the LearningPlanet Festival, in partnership with the LearningPlanet Institute, we hosted a cross-generational workshop of learners and educators on the state of learning today, looking to understand whether learning and the competencies prioritized need to be adjusted, re-understood, or reaffirmed in the world that we live in today. A recurring and consistent theme from all the participants was, what competencies do we need to navigate a world that is a poly-crisis world? Learning is the main intergenerational relationship that most individuals will have outside of their home and their family. What can we learn from the state of cross-generational relationship about our understanding of what is needed for long-term health and prosperity of societies? What does it teach us about our ability to foster a long-term transformation? Moving beyond the issue of contextualized learning are the principles of inclusiveness, empowerment, and care as central elements in the intergenerational relationship that is required. Many of the younger speakers present expressed the need to be heard, consulted with, and invited into a participatory process of learning. The kind of learning that Carlos, Vice President of the Club of Rome, said would be different from the vertical transmission of knowledge type of learning that we have in today's current system. One participant mentioned that a strong example of the intergenerational dynamics is seen in our relationships with failure. How do we create the conditions for curiosity that will allow a new form of learning, one not built to transmit, but rather to inspire? The session was the first of a series of consultations as we ramp up towards the launch of the principles of a new generational contract and its supporting initiatives at the St. Gallen Symposium on the 3rd to the 5th of May this year. So if you have any questions, please feel free to look up the symposium. I'll also share the link on the chat. I will also put my mail on the chat if anyone is interested to look at what type of initiatives can we co-create on a new generational contract. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nolita, for taking Carlos, who cannot join, he's on the plane. Valérie, I mean, together with François, a few other people there in this room, you are one of the first person I had the pleasure to work in the education field, starting as far as I'm concerned 15 years ago. And you always surprise me with taking further the thinking around what we can do and how do we change this system. Please tell us a bit more about what you've been working on in addition to GSLE recently.
Thanks very much indeed, Olivier. Yeah, it's been a long time. And the fact that it's been a long time is partly behind the urgency that I have felt around the project that I'm now announcing the report being published in March of this year. So the beginning of March, we will be delighted to publish a report with the title, The Politics of Education Transformation Towards an Effective Campaign. 15 or 20 years working in this field towards a new paradigm for education. And it's fantastic to see how far the LearningPlanet Institute has come, how many other dimensions of the movement there are. But frankly, my dear colleagues, we are still in a tiny minority as far as the education world is concerned. And we are all working towards a new paradigm. Nolita has just set out some of the dimensions of that. A new paradigm which has new purposes for education, new methods, different outcomes. But that conversation, if we're realistic, is a very constrained one, a very restricted one. It hardly penetrates the public discourse of politics about education at all. And that discourse remains firmly in the 20th century. So the starting point for this piece of research was, how do we cut through into the political discourse about education, which continues to talk about, the old stuff, the funding, the class sizes, the metrics of exam results, the PISA results, and where nations fit in terms of the competitive league tables. How do we cut through that and start to have a different kind of political conversation and discourse about education transformation of the kind that was discussed at the UN summit in September? And I was delighted to see that there was a summit, but I also felt, here we go again. COP has already been mentioned. And what we see there, we see so often people coming together politically and lots of windy rhetoric. And yet when politicians go back into the domestic setting, it's the same old, same old. So this research project has been trying to penetrate the political world and understand why it is so difficult for politicians, even when they personally are convinced of the need for change, to translate it into domestic political agendas. So we have spent time interviewing politicians. Rather than talking to ourselves, we've penetrated the world of politics and talked to ex-ministers, ex-prime ministers, people who've been at the very top of the political world in their own jurisdiction. And we've had a range of jurisdictions in the US, the UK, Australia, and Europe. And as a result of those interviews, thinking about the political world and its impermeability, we've been really interested in thinking about the misalignment of cultures, really, between what we in education talk about and what politicians are interested in and what incentivizes them. Please don't get me wrong, I'm absolutely convinced of the need for a social movement. When Francois talks about moving towards Planetizens, he often references the movement of, say, the suffragettes, or the movement of those who argued for children's rights, putting pressure on politicians who didn't lead the movement but got pushed by it, and in the end accepted its logic and its moral high ground. And so our question is, how do we get to accelerate the pace at which a movement can be built to put pressure on politics to start to adopt the language of transformation and mean it? So the interviews have been absolutely extraordinary, very, very interesting. We have become so much more aware of the misalignment between the two cultures, the short-termism of politics, the long-termism necessarily for education and indeed, of course, the environment. The two crises, it seems to us, are intimately linked: the crisis of our climate and the crisis of education. One is going to rely on the other to get out of the mess that we're in. And that takes me, I suppose, to where we've ended up in our finale for this report, which is that we need to learn the lessons from the climate change movement, which has learned some really smart lessons over the last 10 years as to how to accelerate shift. And we've been looking harder at the kinds of ways in which they've shifted their messaging, the way in which they've attempted to create allies and alliances, sometimes in unusual places. And I think we in education have to be much more open to that and understand what it takes to make a really effective movement, which will power politics in the direction that we need to go in. So the Politics of Education Transformation Towards an Effective Campaign will be published on the 2nd of March. We'll be launching it in Melbourne, Australia. We'll send you all copies. We'd love to have your responses and get into a dialogue with you about that. And we'd also be happy to have more launches in other jurisdictions. So if there are events that you'd like us to come and talk to you and to other audiences about this, my colleague Tony McKay, my co-author, we've been doing this under the auspices of the Global Education Leaders Partnership and also the Centre for Strategic Education. He and I would be just thrilled to share the thinking and I think some of the lessons which we hope will accelerate the movement that we all so passionately care about. Thanks very much, Olivier.
Thank you, Valerie. I mean, this will be extremely useful as a manual to help us take the Learning Planet Festival next year at the next level of pushing the transformation also and throughout the year, not only at this moment. Thank you very much. Can't wait to read your paper. Read quite a few, not this one yet. We're moving now about sharing some of the Learning Planet's ongoing initiatives, and we have more or less 15 minutes less if we want to stick to. So I will be pushing my colleagues into being even shorter in what they present, giving really the essence of what we are launching and putting links in the chat and more details in the chat. Leonora, you start with Teachers for a Planet?
Yeah, I'll be really quick. So those of you who were here last year might remember that we launched a dream lesson series with teachers from around the world, asking them what their dream lesson would be. Lots of them told us that what they wanted to do was address climate in their classrooms, but they didn't feel like they had the tools or the resources or the support or the knowledge to do that. So with Teach for All and the Aga Khan Foundation, plus a load of other organizations like the OECD, UNESCO, the Education Commission, Rockefeller Foundation, lots of national partners, we have launched Teachers for the Planet. It's a year-long program. It's the official route for teachers going up to COP28. The idea is that it recognizes the contribution that teachers can make as part of the solution to the climate crisis, but that they feel isolated, but that they don't have the resources and the support, etc. It recognizes that teachers can play a really critical role in being part of the solution to the climate crisis. It will bring the voice of teachers to some of these big events, including COP28, including the UN General Assembly and others throughout the year. And it will also showcase climate education solutions that are taking place in classrooms and schools. So it's got two strands. One is a community of practice that meets throughout the year online and in person. The other is an online database of climate solutions that we've already started to collect. If you were at the launch earlier, you would have heard some of the teachers from around the world, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Lebanon, Spain, talking about things that they're doing. It's supporting UNESCO's Greening Education Partnership, which is a program running for several years with different strands. And what we're looking for over the next year in the run up to COP22 are 100 really excellent solutions from teachers around the world. I will put in the chat how you can find out more information about it. Please do share it with your networks because we'd love this global movement to really take off. Thanks.
Leonora, I'm so impressed by the work you've been doing with Teachers for the Planet. So thank you very much, and do give the details in the chat. Next is Angel and Ed. Please, both of you, make it very quick and very engaging about the youth recruitment campaign, the youth fellows recruitment. Angel, please.
Yes, hello. First of all, thank you to Learning Planet for inviting me to participate in the closing ceremony of Learning Planet Festival 2023. I'm Angel, and I'm a 17-year-old youth advocate devoted to health, especially well-being and mental health of the public, and an international student. I'm also a youth ambassador of Kids for SDG, a supporting organization of the Learning Planet Alliance. For my sharing today, I would like to reference the festival's framework, learning to take care of oneself, others, and the planet. First, learning for oneself. As a youth fellow myself of Learning Planet Alliance, many discussions were made during the sessions I participated in. I met many others concerned with child rights, and it inspired me to continue to discuss with more people. I was successfully chosen to be a part of the Youth Council, where I strive to represent voices of youth in China and across Asia. And as a communications and engagement team member, I had a lot of time talking with others to find ways to develop an effective and efficient way to transform education to be more innovative, inclusive, and impactful. Second, learning for others. As Deputy Head Girl and Wellbeing Prefect at my international school, Dulwich College of Beijing, I strive to lead a team of students to support the student body, assist youth with emotional, physical, and spiritual health, and break social stigmas to create a more interconnected circle. My project, Inner World, soon to be launched, is aimed to help youth find their passion and direction of their life, to gather their favorite activities and encourage them to make them impactful and powerful, and inspiring more youth in becoming global citizens. Third, learning for the planet. As part of this year's festival programming, Kids for SDGs organized the Aspire 2030 Global Hackathon with more than 80 teams and 23 countries participating. It has covered 6 core themes for people, planet, prosperity, peace, partnership, and positivity. Events like these are designed to move youth from advocacy to activation, followed by cultivation such as community and resources, and finally by elevation, like achieving tangible and measurable impacts in the real world. So once again, thank you all for all of you present and joining virtually for the collective action to help transform education, and wishing everyone a happy Lunar New Year as well. Thank you.
Angel, I mean, I'm always very, I'm saying this a few times, I'm so impressed by all the work that you are doing, that the work that Kids for SDG is doing. Our friend Kenneth Kwok moved from Hong Kong to join us also and to be here to organize the Aspire hackathon. I think it's still ongoing for a few hours, or maybe 12 more hours for the final, but this is such an incredible format and activity. So thank you very much. Ed, a word about youth fellows, or you can put in the chat, tell me.
Absolutely, yeah. So, I mean, Angel is one of over 200 incredible youth fellows now in the Learning Planet community that connect on a regular basis around supporting each other as game changers. And we're continuing to grow this community over the coming years. We'll share the link in the chat, but notably, we'd love you to have a quick look at all of the events that youth fellows have either been organizing themselves or speaking at throughout the week. There's about 30 of them there in the article that you'll see in the chat. A huge amount of gratitude to Angel and the other 200 amazing youth fellows.
Yeah, and a huge gratitude to you, Ed, because with this youth empowerment initiative, you're running it in such an incredible way with Katie for Africa and Lolita, but really thanks a lot. But we need even more, no? Don't we need more imagination in all what we're doing? Ermin, can you tell us about the crazy plans we have together?
Yes, we do need imagination in everything that we're doing. Actually, the imagination is a critical part of everything we've been talking about here today. So I am Ermin, I'm calling in from Paris. I'd like to take a moment to honor the intelligence of all of the species from all time, today and into the future, and to acknowledge the custodians of the lands we all meet on today. Also, a huge thank you to the entire Learning Planet team, friends, partners, and everyone involved in making this festival so rich and generous. Last July, AIM and Learning Planet Institute, we launched a global imagination circle to center imagination in every classroom. We're aiming to build knowledge on creating the conditions that allow imagination to flourish in schools and other learning spaces globally. So in the words of one of the Imagination Circle members this morning, to find, free, and feed our imagination. The circle brings together people at the forefront of imaginative education initiatives around the world and to look at how imagination practice can unlock the imagination potential in young people and shape a healthier model for humanity to connect and live in synergy with the planet and all of its inhabitants. There are three main pillars to the Imagination Circle work. It's around showcasing imagination practice in the transformation of education, understanding the impact of imagination in classrooms, and building a global knowledge base of imagination and pedagogy. Concretely, this looks like around centering imagination by showcasing imagination practice, Imagination TV specials, which are quarterly gatherings of the circle on Imagination TV. This is AIM's YouTube channel, for those of you who may not know that. Looking at how people in various learning spaces are building parameters that allow imagination to flourish. So far, we've had 2 circles in July and in December, and there'll be more coming. Another aspect would be foregrounding imagination at global celebrations of learning, such as the Learning Planet Festival. And for example, this week, we hosted 4 Imagination TV sessions looking at imagination in education at the margins, particularly in refugee communities, imagination in nonviolence and peace building. I heard you mention Pavel a little bit earlier, and he was one of our panelists in that one. Imagination at the intersection of wisdom, traditions, and science. And I've seen Pearl on the call, and she was a panelist on that one. And the last one was this morning on unleashing imagination in every classroom, and Francois was one of the panelists on that and shared that beautiful story by Ariana that he shared in this call as well. One of the other areas we'll be looking at is developing Imagazine, which is a free mentoring magazine for school students, where we publish imagination knowledge via story. This will be co-written by imagination thinkers and educators from the circle and Year 12 school students worldwide, and it will be available free to schools worldwide. The second aspect on building a global base of imagination and pedagogy will have monthly gatherings of an imagination community of practice. We'll be pooling knowledge, experience, and resources and imagination for transforming education. We'll be looking at co-designing imagination curricula and toolkits, and we'll be looking at hosting imagination residencies here in Paris at Learning Planet Institute, at AIM's Imagination Factory in Sydney, and at other partner sites. The third pillar is around researching the impact of imagination in classrooms, and that will be assessing the impact of all of the above initiatives and making a case for imagination in every classroom, and also connecting to an ongoing research project that's currently based in Australia called Sparking Imagination, and AIM is a part of that. The Sparking Imagination research is led by a consortium of Australian universities, led by the University of Sydney, excuse me, and that aims to build an imagination pedagogy framework for Australian schools. And it'll be looking specifically at Indigenous cultural imagination practices, notably at some of AIM's imagination practices across some school sites, and we'll be looking to learn from that. We're really excited about this circle, and I'm inviting you all to get a taste of what is growing out of the circle so far through the highlights reel that I'll drop in the chat. And I also want to share, as we were talking a little bit earlier about ChatGPT and AI and all of these things, also wanted to share a live experiment we did on Imagination TV on making stories and art with AI. Thank you very much for your time and your attention and your energy.
You're muted, Olivier.
Sorry, I was saying that, thank you very much, Irmin. The Australian Indigenous Mentoring Experience, AIM, really means love in French. And we are madly in love with the cooperation we do with you and all the teams at AIM. Nila, would you tell us a bit more about what's cooking for Earth Day on 22nd of April?
Thank you so much. I'm like so impressed with all that you do. Earth Day's movement has been for the last 53 years, but you all in the last 4 years have brought an amazing network of people together. And I love the word Planetizen ship. And thank you so much for letting me meet so many of these wonderful experts from all over the world. And we hope that everyone will join Earth Day coming up. Invest in our planet, and we want people to invest in climate literacy, of course, but we also have various things like a great global cleanup because we want to end plastic pollution. So taking climate education one step further towards climate literacy, which basically means youth engagement and civic engagement. We want people to actually do well, plant trees, do cleanup drives, move towards sustainable fashion. So these are some of our focus areas coming up for Earth Day on April 22nd. And I hope you will join us for once again, as you do every year. Thank you.
We definitely will, Nila. Thank you very much for all your involvement, all the events you do. It's great. It's great to talk with you. I'm seeing Asha with us. And Asha, do you hear me?
Yes, I do, Olivier. I'm sorry, I'm keeping my video off. I don't know where everyone else is, but it's 3:30 a.m. for me.
So that's exactly the point, Asha. Last year, I saw you in every single session connected from Australia. And this year, it's the first time that I see you. Probably we were not in the same. So my festival would have been completely missed if I didn't see you. So please tell us a word maybe about Catalyst Change Week, which is coming pretty soon, if you can.
Oh, yes. No, that's coming up in May. And, you know, there's a lot of space I can see for all the, you know, sessions that you've had in the Learning Planet Festival. So many of them, you know, I'm looking at some of these links to the sessions. And, you know, maybe something like that could be put into a catalyzing change package or something, you know. You never know. So just, you know, something easier to do in a sense, because these things take a long time. But that could be something to do because, honestly, you did a wonderful event this year. And I'm sorry I couldn't be in it. I haven't been 100% well. But, you know, I follow you from a distance. And I thought the wrap up I really have to be at. so I am here.
Thank you for being here with us, Asha.
Thank you all so much.
And take care of yourself and be well soon. I think we have now, we come up to the very last minutes of this session. So I'm saying a huge thank you to everyone. It's been a great pleasure. And we are going to finish with a short movie that François has been doing together with Jean-Pierre Gou, One Home. François, you want to say one word? And then we launch the session, and we can all say goodbye because we won't be coming back maybe after this 2 or 3 minutes video to close the festival.
Oh, just in one word, this was launched by Jean-Pierre Gou that tries to have everyone experience the overview effect that so far only the astronauts have experienced. So because this is not very ecological to send everyone in space, The second best is to try to do the sort of things that Jean-Pierre is doing, using wonderful images that NASA has produced, and then inviting several people to make some sort of a love declaration to Earth. So I was invited to do this. This was my own a bad attempt, so apology, but maybe all of you can think of the way you would make your own love declaration to Earth.
We're going to launch this. See you next week. I mean, I don't think we're going to wait 1 year, so we'll probably be working together as soon as next week. Take good care, and let's go for some inspiration with One Home. Is it working, Michael?
What if we learn to become planetizens, Zen citizens of our planet? Can we learn to move from planet I to planet we, from the frictions of ecosystem to flourishing ecosystems? How to planetize a movement of awareness of the frailty of our planet? May we hope for a deep resonance with the poet T.S. Eliot's famous lines: "Where is the life we have lost in living? Where is the wisdom we have lost in knowledge? Where is the knowledge we have lost in information? Where is the care we have lost in our search for power? Where is the love we have lost in pretending we are invulnerable?" May we learn to reverse these losses. May we learn to understand our interdependencies. May we learn to embrace our vulnerabilities. May we learn to be fair with the next generations. May we learn to love under the burning planet's eyes, fully knowing we need to empathize and planetize. May we learn, as we rise to the challenges of our time, to care for ourselves, others, and the planet. May we learn to nurture our inner and outer worlds, the planetizens' commons we all have in common. May we understand that under our beautiful skies, our ecosystems are our best allies. May we learn, when we see an Earth's rise, that it does epitomize the need to realize that if we were any bit wise, we would deeply empathize and find ways to catalyze, ways to renew our Earthling family ties. May we learn to vocalize our need to enfranchise, to truly democratize. May we hear Martin Luther King's advice and learn to planetize. Under the wide open planet's eyes, may we become learning planetizens.